In California, the Master continued his work on his ultimate plan, now christening it as the Unity. He began building a mutant army by abducting trade caravans and dipping them in the FEV, creating his mutated foot soldiers. The most intelligent among these soldiers were equipped with the best of the Unity's weapons and stealth technology, making them into Nightkin. Others who were deemed more valuable as experiments than as servants were thrown into the vats with a concoction of other animals, creating the horrible centaurs, which acted as nothing more than guard dogs to the Unity. In 2155, the Master moved his base of operations from Mariposa to a public proof-of-concept vault under a cathedral in Los Angeles, manufacturing a cult called the Children of the Cathedral, who worshipped him and his plans, hoping they would lure in unsuspecting victims for his experiments. In the vault, he also found records of other vaults, which the Master knew would be a prime location to find humans free of radiation to create intelligent humans from. Some of these were a success, like Vault 17, and others were a failure, like Vault 12 in Bakersfield, which failed to close its door completely on the day the bombs dropped, leaving all of the residents ghoulified. While the Unity and the Master continued to gain power and influence, the growing number and coordination of the mutants began to be noticed by local survivors. The Followers of the Apocalypse, a humanitarian organization based near the Unity's cathedral, had become suspicious of the Children of the Cathedral and dispatched a spy to infiltrate the cult and learn their motives. The Unity was also noticed by the Brotherhood of Steel, a paramilitary order descended from the soldiers who rebelled at Mariposa. John Maxon, High Elder of the Brotherhood and grandson of its founder, had read scouting reports that discovered strange mutants in the wasteland, which the Brotherhood scribes had determined were being artificially created, though the Council of Elders could not decide on a course of action, if any at all. The Followers and the Brotherhood were finally sprung into action with the arrival of a Vault Dweller from Vault 13, who also had the mission of ending the super mutant menace. With help from the Followers, the Vault Dweller was able to infiltrate the cathedral, venturing into the lower levels of the vault below. Here, another of the Master's inhumane experiments was revealed. Using the FEV, 4 psychically adept individuals had been created with similar abilities to the Master himself. Kept in check by psychic nullifying headgear, these powers included electrokinesis, pyrokinesis, telekinesis, and telepathy, though an unfortunate side effect of these abilities was either a calm insanity or mild depression. Finally, after making it to the lowest level of the vault, and enduring all of the physical and psychic challenges set before him, the Vault Dweller of Vault 13 came face to face with the Children of the Cathedral's dark god, the Master of the Super Mutants.
So what shall it be? Do you join the Unity, or do you die here?
Join.
Die!
Join.
Die!
The Master fully intended to turn the Vault Dweller to his cause, hoping the Dweller would give up the location of Vault 13 so that its residents could be mutated as well. But the Dweller stayed true to his mission, fighting the Unity to its bitter end. There are conflicting stories on how the Master was defeated. Some say the Vault Dweller was able to convince the Master his plan was fundamentally flawed, and, using data from the Brotherhood of Steel, showed the Master that his creations were infertile and would not survive more than a generation, causing him to commit suicide. Others say that the Dweller was able to kill the Master, overcoming his immense security measures and psychic power. Others still say that the Vault Dweller found a nuclear weapon hidden deep inside the annals of the vault, and sneakily detonated it before escaping. Regardless, the death of the Master initiated the self-destruct sequence of the cathedral, bringing his cult of followers to an end. Soon after, the Vault Dweller led a Brotherhood task force in an assault on Mariposa, destroying the vats and bringing an end to the Unity once and for all. Left to their own devices, the remnants of the Master's army scattered across the wasteland. Some joined the fledgling New California Republic, and others settled down in their own communities, such as the mining town of Broken Hills. For decades, Mariposa was once again abandoned, but now without the threat of FEV creatures making it into the wasteland. At least until 2236, when the ruins of Mariposa were discovered by the Enclave, who wished to use the FEV for their own devious purposes. Using slaves kidnapped from local settlements, the Enclave excavated what remained of Mariposa and took samples of the FEV back to their offshore oil rig base. Not without incident, however, as many of the slaves used by the Enclave were mutated by the FEV, creating a second generation of super mutants after the Master's army. Being that all of the Enclave slaves were wastelanders, all of the mutants were of the less intelligent variety. A Secret Service agent assigned to Mariposa was also exposed to the FEV, and was sent back to the oil rig to be studied and experimented on. The slaves, now with increased strength, revolted against the Enclave, forcing them to leave Mariposa to the mutants. One of the mutants, Melchior, took command of the mutants in Mariposa, becoming the undisputed leader because of his strange, magical abilities. On the Enclave's oil rig, the Enclave's evil experiments were expedited with the retrieval of the FEV. As part of their plan to reclaim the mainland United States, the Enclave planned to use the FEV to commit a mass genocide against every single human on the planet that weren't a part of the Enclave. Dr. Charles Curling developed a strain of airborne FEV that would be lethal to any who breathed it in without being inoculated against it. Unlike pure FEV, Curling's FEV solution was more dangerous to those without substantial FEV exposure. When tested on kidnapped tribals from the village Arroyo, which had been living in the wasteland for 2 generations, massive hemorrhaging started in the subjects almost immediately, with the subjects dying of organ failure within an hour. Test subjects from Vault 13, however, which were sheltered from radiation since the bombs dropped, were only given the sweet release of death after an agonizing 14 hours of hemorrhages. The Curling solution was not the only FEV experiment taken on by the Enclave. After kidnapping the residents of Vault 13 for their experiments, the Enclave left behind a cohort of genetically engineered death claws to stop anyone from looking into the Dweller's disappearance. Death claws were already a product of bioengineering from before the war by the US military, so they made a perfect candidate for further modification by the Enclave. Using the FEV, the Enclave further modified their Deathclaw test subjects, increasing their intelligence in order to make them more receptive to orders. The results were wildly varied, with some subjects being granted the intelligence of a human child, and others far surpassing even history's most acclaimed geniuses. The success of the Deathclaws backfired on the Enclave, however, as they began making their own decisions, including taking in settlers to Vault 13, in direct contradiction to their given orders. When the Enclave discovered their experiment's insubordination, after recapturing a Deathclaw named Zarn and interrogating him, the colony's destruction was ordered at the hand of the Enclave's last FEV abomination.
Me, Frank Horrigan, that's who. United States Secret Service.
The same Secret Service agent who had been exposed to the FEV at Mariposa had been subjected to further experimentation to increase his muscle mass past that of even a normal super mutant. Fanatically loyal to the Enclave, Horrigan was encased in a specially made suit of power armor and given the sole purpose of serving as the Enclave's enforcer. Horrigan destroyed the colony at Bolt 13, decimated a Brotherhood outpost in San Francisco, and served as a bloody assassin to any that opposed the Enclave's will. Thankfully, the Enclave's FEV experiments were put to an end in 2242, when their oil rig was destroyed by a champion from Arroyo. While there were some more minor experiments using the FEV, like Weston Lesko's creation of fire-breathing ants, the last major use of FEV post-war was by the Institute of the Commonwealth. The Bioscience Division of the Institute had been experimenting with the FEV since the 2170s, creating their own supermutants from abducted wastelanders. The main purpose of their research, however, was to help in the Institute's synth program. The Institute wished to create automatons indistinguishable from natural-born humans, and the FEV, along with the DNA of a pre-war child, gave the Institute's synths enough genetic diversity for the project to be considered a success. Even after the success of the synth program, the Institute's FEV experiments continued to no apparent goal, except causing chaos among wastelanders when their experiments released to the surface. That was until 2287, when Project Lead Brian Virgil, having major moral objections to the project, sabotaged the lab and exposed himself to the FEV and escaped the Institute. Now, Virgil uses his mutated form to shield himself from the immense radiation of the glowing sea, hiding in an irradiated cave amongst the debris of Ground Zero. Thankfully for Virgil, he specially engineered an antidote to the specific strain of FEV he exposed himself to, allowing him to turn himself back into a human. If only he hadn't left the antidote in the Institute.